Director with the City of Columbus Community Relations Commission. I would like to welcome you on behalf of our commission and Commission Chair Mary Howard to the 30th Annual Holocaust Remembrance Program. I would also like to recognize some of our commissioners that are out in the audience: Commissioner Nancy Payan, Commissioner Eric Brown, Commissioner Rebecca Nelson, and also Commissioner Takia Wright. So thank you for being here. As you listen to the speakers today, please remember to keep their message alive, and also to speak up for those around the world who are facing inhumane treatment and oppression today. This year, we have also memorialized many of the videos of our previous Yom Hashoah programs for your viewing at www.crc.columbus.gov. I also would like to thank the Mayor's Office and their Department of Technology for assisting us in making that happen. At this time, I would like to call forward the Columbus Downtown High School Honor Guard and Air Force Junior ROTC followed by our honored Jewish war veterans to present the colors. Then our State Representative Herschel Craig will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by our Mistress of Ceremonies, Councilmember Eileen.
Everybody, please be seated. Welcome to the 30th Annual City of Columbus Holocaust Remembrance Program. My name is Councilmember Eileen Paley, and I will be serving as the Master of Ceremonies today. We are grateful to have the opportunity, under the auspices of Mayor Michael B. Coleman, together in the City of Columbus to observe this day of remembrance and honor the memory of those who perished in the Holocaust. This program is sponsored by the City of Columbus, Mayor Michael B. Coleman, and the City of Columbus Community Relations Commission in cooperation with the Jewish Federation of Columbus and its Holocaust Education Committee. We would like to recognize a number of other distinguished members of our community present today. I see that Commissioner Marilyn Brown is here, Judge Eric Brown, the esteemed Hugh Dorian, and Assistant Director Bob Stewart. Thank you for joining us today. I would also like to thank Joyce Keller of the Jewish Community Center. Thank you for being here today. Thank you all for your continued support and attendance for this event. I also want to thank Director Napoleon Bell, the Executive Director of the Community Relations Commission, and to our Columbus Downtown High School Honor Guard and the Air Force Junior ROTC. In addition, we recognize the Columbus chapter of the Jewish War Veterans, Saul Laub, and all of the other veterans present in our audience today. From the Jewish Federation of Columbus, we would like to acknowledge Gordon Hecker, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Columbus, Dr. Jonathan Feibel, Vice Chair of the Jewish Federation of Columbus and Chair of the Jewish Community Relations Committee, and Bob Lane, Vice President, JCRC. And of course, our thanks to the survivors who are present here with us today. This Holocaust Remembrance Program is in large part about educating the next generation to be a more tolerant people and remain ever vigilant. We therefore recognize the students present today in City Hall chambers that represent a variety of schools from around Central Ohio. We have with us today students from Dublin Kaufman High School, Eastland Fairfield Career Center, Gahanna Lincoln High School, Hilliard Bradley Davidson and Darby High Schools, St. Anthony School, St. Pius School, and the Wellington School. Before calling on Mayor Mike Coleman, I want to acknowledge his long-standing commitment to this event that has served to educate thousands of Columbus students on the issues of the Holocaust. I want to congratulate him on his work to promote inclusion and his commitment to appreciating differences throughout Central Ohio. For the 16 years Mayor Michael B. Coleman held office as mayor of the city of Columbus, he has participated in this event. In appreciation of Michael Coleman's years of support to the Columbus Jewish community and behalf of the Columbus Jewish Federation, it is my honor to present you with this token of their appreciation. Mayor Coleman.
Thank you so much. My turn? Thank you so much. I accept this with great humility and honor from the Jewish Community Relations Committee. And on this date, Jewish Federation of Columbus, thank you very much. It's very important to me because every year I come out here and stand with you to remember. And every year, it's very emotional. And every year we have many students that are here today in our balcony who wasn't alive during the Holocaust, wasn't even thought about. But we want to make sure that the Holocaust and this genocide will never be repeated ever in history again. So it is up to us to make sure that doesn't happen. And so that's why we should never forget. We must always remember the terrifying acts that occurred to millions and millions of people, to an act against humanity. And we cannot have that ever again. And so we must take the torch and pass it from generation to generation to remember the value of life, to remember the importance of everybody, no matter what. And this Holocaust was so horrible that over half, if you use just the population of the state of Ohio, which is over 11 million people, families were taken out. Entire cities were taken out. A whole generation of people was almost annihilated. And imagine your friends, your neighbors, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, gone, murdered. There's people here today, sitting in this front row, who that occurred to. And we honor their survivorship, we honor their life, and we honor those whose life was taken away. I'm proud to be associated with this, and I have enjoyed being mayor and also participating in this event every single year, and I accept this honor with great humility and honor. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Janet Monsieur-Dor, Diversity Coordinator for the Hilliard Schools, recognized as the National Education Association Diversity Education of the Year, will present information about a video library and its educational values.
As a public school teacher, it's my responsibility to help young people understand themselves and the world around them. That learning process includes encouraging my students to think critically about what they're learning, who is telling the story, why the story is being told from that perspective, and then consider what voices are left out of that story. Additionally, we educators encourage our students to find relevance between the story that's being told and their own lives. However, far too often, for many different reasons, primary witness accounts are not included as to what and why something's occurred. But when those primary witness perspectives are included, they add complexity, authenticity, and relevance that brings the past into the present and informs and creates the future. It's with deep appreciation to Mayor Coleman, the Jewish Federation, the Columbus Community Relations Commission, that my students have been included for the last 10 years to observe this extremely meaningful, sacred Yom HaShoah event, at which we had the honor of hearing primary witness accounts of the Holocaust. My students have witnessed the survival of people who faced the absolute worst of humanity. My students and I have been transformed by their stories of pain and compassion, faith, advocacy, and strength. My young people, some of them having faced brutality and the worst of humanity themselves, have received the message that their lives matter. All lives matter. Through your generous invitation to this event, my students from all communities have been given the responsibility and inspiration that their lives must serve as an example as the best of humanity. These stories help young people become, as Mrs. Gerda Weissman Klein said at this very podium, the spiritual heirs to your stories of struggle, your stories of pain, your stories of hope. And by sharing your life with them, our young people now serve as the voice of the voiceless, so that we never forget. Through the Jewish Federation's efforts of housing previous Yom HaShoah events online, other educators can now take advantage of a variety of past speakers, primary witnesses who retell their stories of survival, stories that give meaning to what has previously only been accessible through history books, stories that help young people try to grasp what has taken place in the past and why and how to ensure that it never, ever happens again. By trusting us with the most tender parts of your lives, my students ponder how their lives can and must serve to create a better world, one that we all deserve. Thank you.
Today, I also have the pleasure to introduce Council President Andrew Ginther. Council President Ginther is a graduate of Earlham College. In addition to teaching at schools in Ireland, he also taught nonviolence and dispute resolution in Atlanta, Georgia, where he was serving internships at the Carter Presidential Center. Council President Ginther had over 50 foster brothers and sisters while growing up in Columbus. His mother is a social worker, and his father is a Vietnam veteran. He has lived diversity his entire life. His most recent work and commitment regarding the problems of infant mortality, preschool education, and children's hunger are well known around the city of Columbus. I am proud to call him a mensch for our city and for our Jewish community. And for those of you who don't know what that means, let me explain. The word mensch is a Yiddish term. According to the author Leo Roston, who wrote The Joys of Yiddish, mensch means someone to admire and emulate, someone of noble character. Mr. Ralston further states, it is high compliment and also means someone who possesses dignity and a sense of what is right. I can tell you that my friend, Council President Andrew Ginther, does the right thing for the right reasons. I give you Council President Andrew Ginther.
Thank you, and Councilmember Paley, I appreciate that very kind and generous introduction. Thank you to the assembled clergy, elected officials, and distinguished guests gathered here today for this sacred observance. I'm Andrew Ginther and honored to serve as Council President here at Columbus, but today as we mark this most solemn occasion, we must also rededicate ourselves to this simple pledge. We must never forget. We must never forget man's inhumanity to man. We must never forget the scar this blatant act of violence has left on the Jewish people here in Columbus and around the world. We must never forget the countless others persecuted by blind ignorance and hatred. It has been said that strength lies in differences, not similarities. That is certainly true right here in the great city of Columbus. Here in Columbus, in the heart of Ohio in the Midwest, it has been this celebration held yearly in this room of our differences that is part of the recipe that has become central to our success. Here in Columbus, we respect and celebrate our differences. Differences in thought, in perspective, differences in experiences and culture, as well as differences in gender and age. Here in Columbus, our differences make our community that much stronger, and we celebrate the respect for the differences in our communities as a core city value. This celebration of our differences, coupled with our efforts to promote Columbus as a great place to live, work, and raise a family, are among the reasons that our great city and community continues to thrive. We promote equality and respect for differences as a core community value, and we're stronger for these differences. And we work to protect those who are the target of hatred and violence, the framework of a free and just society. This solemn occasion is an opportunity for all of us, from all walks of life, to remember the lives of those who lost theirs, as well as those who were persecuted during this dark time. It's also an opportunity to honor the legacy of those who survived by lifting up the stories of those who survived, such as Barbara Turkeltaub, whom you'll hear from in just a few moments. Hopefully, we will amplify our collective ability to remember to be kind and gentle with our souls, to help us make sure that such horrors never, ever happen again. And to the young people here today, you're going to hear some pretty remarkable stories, things that you've only read about or seen depicted in movies or television. So I want every young person here, this isn't just an opportunity to learn. You now have an obligation and a commitment to make sure your classmates, your friends, family members, those you study with or worship with or work with, I'd like you to each repeat after me. We must never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ginther. The Holocaust raises many questions about humanity, life, and faith. We are here today to recall and memorialize and bear witness. We recall the events that led to the Holocaust in order to learn from them. We remember those who lost their lives. We remember those who survived and have carried the experience of the Holocaust throughout their lives. We remember those who helped bring an end to the Holocaust and those who liberated the survivors. And we remember lest we forget and bear the consequences. The rise of Nazi Germany after World War I set the stage of the first concentration camp, Dachau, which was established in 1933 as a prison and process to instill fear into the population and silence political opposition. Boycotts of Jewish businesses began. Jews were barred from educational institutions, hospitals, professional employment, public parks, libraries, and beaches. Anti-Semitism grew until the Jews were stripped of their citizenship. The Holocaust was a systematic process from discrimination to isolation from society, the stripping of civil and human rights, and ultimately to genocide. The destruction of people does not occur overnight or without warning. Rather, it is a process that separates and demonizes a people until they are dehumanized. When the Nazis and their allies implemented the final solution, the Jews and the other groups identified for extermination, such as homosexuals and gypsies, fit squarely into the category of other that no longer had a right to live. We are also here today to acknowledge that hatred is often contagious. When any group is discriminated against, it is usually just a matter of time until others are included. Jews in Europe gradually began to understand the goal and magnitude of what was happening and organized resistance. But in the end, nothing could bring back the 6 million Jews that lost their lives and 11 million total lives taken by the Nazi regime. Jewish life in Eastern and Central Europe was all but disseminated, and most of those who survived were forever changed. Collectively, as a society, each one of us as an individual bears this responsibility. Therefore, we are here today to remember, and our presence here serves as our testimony that we will not be silent. Today, we bear witness to the testimony from our guest speaker, Barbara Turkeltaub. Barbara Turkeltaub was a child survivor of the Holocaust. When the Nazis descended on her hometown in Vilna, Poland, Barbara, barely in grade school, along with her family, was marched into the Vilna ghetto. Barbara spent the next few years on a remarkable journey through fear, hope, and survival. Barbara, along with her sister Leah, was smuggled out of the ghetto, and arrangements were made for her to live with a non-Jewish family on a farm outside of town. This move saved their lives, as over 95% of the Jews in Vilna were subsequently murdered. Barbara's speech at the governor's annual Yom Hashoah Holocaust commemoration inspired Governor Kasich to propose a plan to build a permanent memorial at the State House, which was dedicated on June 2nd, 2014. So generations will never forget what so few are now alive to tell. Ms. Turkeltaub. Thank you.
Some years ago, I came across a book. The name of the book was Painted Bird. It was written, it wasn't a special literary value, and the author wasn't that popular either. However, when I started to read, I started to remember things, frightening things, things that I did not want to remember. And very neatly, for a long time, I put into my subconsciousness, and I didn't want to admit to myself or to anybody else that anything would happen. The story in the book, it talks about, first of all, it's a metaphor for kids were playing outside and they caught a bird, and they painted that bird many different colors. And then they let it go. And so when the bird flew away to the rest of the birds did not recognize it and started to pick that bird until it died. Many years ago, I was attending with my family the first gathering of Holocaust survivors in Jerusalem. It was held in a big auditorium, and tables were set up against the wall, and above the tables there were names of the cities of Europe, mostly Poland and Lithuania, and people, the few survivors that were left, they were gathering around the tables and trying to still looking for some relatives or friends and to see if they can see. On the wall there were also telephone numbers and pictures and so hoping that they will see somebody and they perhaps will know somebody that survived and know what happened to their loved ones. When I walked in, I right away saw the table and a sign of Vilno, that's where I was born, and there was no one there. There were no pictures, there were no telephones, there were nothing. Well, I stood in anticipation. I went there and was hoping that somebody will, Vilno, that's 80,000 Jews lived in Vilno. It was called Jerusalem of Lithuania. It was a place where there are a lot of educated people came out. There were philosophers and writers, and it's very well known. People were coming from all over Europe to study in Vilnius. Nobody is there, nobody at the table. There was nobody. I stood and I waited, and I waited for quite a long time. And with a pain in my heart, I walked away after several hours. Nobody showed up. 99% of Jewish people in Vilna, before even the concentration camps, they were murdered in very famous forest, Ponari. I want to tell you a little bit about my family. I came from just a middle-class family, like any family over here. My father was an accountant and worked for the city government. My mom was seamstresser and had a little business going at home and had about 10 young women from nearby village teaching them to sew. And they lived with us. My grandfather lived with us. I had 2 older sisters and 1 younger, Leah. I had also a brother that was born in 1943 in Ghetto that I have not seen him till he was older. Not a good time to be born. Anyway, so we were family just like any other family. And what I remember, it's a very closely knit family. I remember the welcoming Sabbath at home, having guests. It was a happy household. Then one day, one Sunday, my introduction to war, I was playing on Sunday morning with other kids outside. The boys were playing football, although it's called soccer here. And I was just sitting with other girls, sitting because I was not included in a play because I was too young and a girl, so I was just watching. And so, the ball that one boy kicked, and the ball fell into ditch. So I thought, well, here's my chance. Maybe I'll do something. So I ran after the ball to the ditch. Right that moment, I hear this terrible, terrible sound from sky, and we saw planes were flying very, very, very close and throwing bombs. And where there was a laughter, when there was joy, all of a sudden, darkness, debris, and quiet. And I was clutching the ball in the ditch, and a few minutes later, somebody grabbed me and dragged me away from there. I have never seen these kids anymore. I don't know if anybody survived. Anyway, that was my introduction to war. Nobody talked to children at that time. Well, anyway, my father and I, a few days later, we watched as the Nazi soldiers were marching into the Vilno in goose steps and looking like robots almost, and the Lithuanian people, unfortunately, they were welcoming them with cheers and flowers. Anyway, it didn't take very long. It didn't take very long, and the humiliation and degradation of each Jewish person began almost immediately. Jews were not allowed to walk on a sidewalk. It had to be only in the gutter. Jews had to be identified with this yellow star. There were no school, no work, no nothing. And in very short time, we end up in ghetto. Ghetto, it's a place with barbed wire, and every few meters there were a tower with a soldier with machine gun guarding, so we won't be able to run away from there. I never understood why am I behind this barbed wire? Why am I here? And the other kids, and where it's cold and it's dark, why the other kids are playing there and calling me all sorts of names? What have I done? And calling me Jew, dirty Jew. And what is Jew anyway? I had no idea. Nobody actually were telling me. I wasn't going around and, I'm a Jew or I'm not. I thought I am like everybody else. Well, the parents in the ghetto went to work either to slave labor, or they worked in factories there. I remember my mother used to say that she worked in HKP, and I don't know what that is till today. I have no idea, but that's the name of the factory that she was working. And children that had parents were in like a children's center. The only incentive to go to children's center is because you would get a slice of bread and with a little bit sugar on it. That's the only, because there is nothing else. The children that already didn't have parents anymore because they died, so they were on the streets begging. Life in ghetto was sheer hell. Sheer hell. Honestly, I think if I would commit any kind of crime, I would probably not go to hell or any place, because I have been there. The stench of sewage and rotting bodies were everywhere. Children laying on the streets begging. Nazis coming from time to time with a truck and letting their dogs out, so they can. Older men were sitting with his tallis on and praying, to rip him apart and making pictures and making jokes. I remember when I saw an incident like that, I ran quickly and hid in a dresser drawer, thinking that any moment a dog will run after me, that's what's going to happen to me. And why? I didn't know why. Why is it? What have I done? What have we done? Why are we being killed why are we being hated by everybody, and why are we being killed? They wanted to kill us. Why? And nobody talked to children at that time. One day in Children's Center, the two women that's supposed to take care of us, well, there may be 100 children, I don't know exactly how many. I saw buses came in, buses like a school buses here, except they were brown and the windows were blocked. So, and then they talked to these two women, and then after a few minutes, they started to call names. And so the children were coming out. I didn't know if they called my name or not, but I had a feeling that this is not something not good. So I caught my sister, and we hid behind there were little bushes around the wooden building. And I was hiding there with her and told her to be quiet. And so when the buses were full, they drove away. That day, when the parents came to pick up the children, from far away we were hearing this terrible cry of desperation, calling their children's name. And there were no children. They were taken away. Later we found out that they were guests. I don't know. That day, that was during the ghetto liquidation. My father, for the first time, put me on a stool, and he says to me, and he kneeled towards me, and he says, Basha, my name is Barbara, but pet name Basha. He says, there is a terrible war going on. In order for us to live through this, and we're going to live through this, we need to separate. I am going with your older sister in one place, but we arranged for you for foster parents. And the foster parent, that man that used to bring milk and some produce to our home from the village, that's where you're going to go. And we made arrangements, and you will go. What can I tell you? I remember till today, my mother was holding my little sister. She was about 3 years old only, and she was holding to her bosom. And she was crying, and she was praying, and she was saying, Eli, Eli, lama azabtayni? My God, why have thou forsaken us? And that man came, and he came with horse and buggy, and put us in the back of his buggy, covered us with burlap and some hay, and took us out from ghetto. I think they paid off the guards so we can escape. I don't know how long we were with these people. Probably maybe a year or so. We were given different chores. But one day I overheard that the lady was saying to her husband, you will take the two. She didn't like us very much. They didn't like very much Jews, I guess, there. So she says, you'll take these two breads, and tomorrow is Friday, tomorrow is marketplace. Take them to the marketplace and then take them to Gestapo. I had no idea what Gestapo is, but I also felt that it's something not very good. And you will get an award, and you'll get a truckload of sugar beets. That's what I heard she was saying to him. So that night I decided we have to run away from there. But where do you run? Where do you go? I have no idea. And then my sister was always, she wasn't very compliant. She always hungry and always wanted to eat, and we didn't have enough to give it to her. Well, anyway, so I thought to myself, I'm going to sneak into the pantry and get for her a slice of bread, and I'll give it to her so she will eat it. And while she is eating, I'll tell Leah, come on, let's go. And I did this, and that should have been enough. But you see, as I was walking away, I saw there's jars of honey. They did have honey, so jars of honey. So I thought, well, I'm going to take some honey and put on that bread and give it to her. For sure, she'll be quiet, and we can get out of there. And I did this. I gave it to her. She started to eat. and I took her by the hand, and we started to get out quietly. And all of a sudden, I see bubbles are coming from her mouth, from her nose, from everywhere, and that wasn't honey, that was soap. I thought I killed my sister. And I want to take away from her. I said, I could give it back. No, she wouldn't give it. She kept eating. Well, okay. So we were running with the bubbles and with the bread and with everything. How far, I cannot tell you how far we ran. There was only one road. All my life I wanted to go right. So we went right. And pretty soon we end up in a place that where a little factory that they were making bricks. And we were by then tired, so we went and sat down next to that brick oven, and I guess we fell to sleep. Soon after, I heard horse's hooves, and I saw a priest on the horse and buggy. He looked at us, and he didn't stop. He just kept going. But a little bit later, he was coming back, and I had no place, I didn't know where to go, so we kept sitting there because it was warm there. So a little bit later, he was coming back, and this time he stopped, he came down to us, and he looked at us, and my father, before he told me that we had to separate, he told me, he put me on a stool, and he told me, never to admit that you speak, don't ever speak Yiddish, Jewish. Don't ever admit that you are Jewish. Don't ever say your last name, because my last name was Gorwitz, so it's a very Jewish name. So don't say your last name, and don't, if somebody asks you where your name, say it, you are Barbara, this is my sister Leah, and bomb fell on our house, and we don't know where we are, I don't know where the parents are. Well, so when the priest came down, he looked at us, he smiled, he asked my name and our name, and that litany I told, what I remember what my father told me to say, and that the bomb fell on the house, and we don't know where our parents are, we don't know where anything is. He didn't ask many questions, he knew, I'm sure he knew. He asked me if we would like to come with him. Well, what was my alternative? He had a kind face and smiling, and I say sure, and so he put us on that buggy in the back. He covered us with burlap and hay. I don't know. It seems that at that time everybody were with horse and buggy, and everybody has burlap and hay in the back. It seems that everybody were doing that. They were smuggling things, I guess. So. And before I knew, we ended up in a convent, in a place I think that was near Punari. I don't know if anybody here is from Vilnius, or anybody knows. That's the place where, before even concentration camps, most of the Vilnius Jews were murdered. That's the very famous forest Punari. But there was also a village, and there was also a part of the convent, I guess, because pretty soon the nuns came out and they took us quickly. There, and we remained there for a little while. At one point, we were told never to venture outside, never to venture outside. Well, I was very compliant, most of the time anyway, and one day, it was such a beautiful day, and the sunshine and everything, and I felt like I wanted to go out a little bit outside. I started to walk in some flowers, for flowers, and then I heard sound. The light there. Farsi, didn't know, couldn't move. And I felt somebody grabbing me and drag me away from there. And that was one of the nuns. And from that day on, we were not allowed to venture absolutely outside. And that evening, the same priest came. I don't know how they communicated. They didn't have any telephones. I don't think so. The priest came and he picked us up and took us to main convent in Vilnius. And that was a closed convent, and that's where we remained for the rest of the war. The thing is that 2 years after the war, I had no idea. Nobody bothered to tell us that the war is over. I had no idea that anything that there's no more war. Anyway, life in convent, of course, we went through all the education, the Catholic education and all this. And 2 years after the war, the priest came and told me that there is a woman looking for her children, and somebody told her that you might be her children. Barbara, would you like to see her? I said, no, I don't know any woman. I don't want to see anybody. I was afraid. I didn't know. So it took a long time. It took quite some time till I finally agreed to see the lady. When I walked into the office and when I saw the woman, I didn't resemble like my mom at all. My mother, I remember, was tall and very beautiful to me. And here is a small lady with a babushka with glasses. I don't know, didn't recognize her. And I started to walk away, and I say, I don't know who she is. When I told her, then I hear the voice, my child, my kind. Ich bin deine Mama. I'm your mom. I recognize the voice. And I agreed to go with her only if she will come to convent, only if she become Catholic and be in convent. She says, yes, she agreed to everything. And after a little while, we left the convent, went with my mom. My mom left Vilnius very quickly because she was afraid that we're going to go back to convent. We wanted to go 6 o'clock mass, my sister and I, and then by then also she found my brother, the most unruly little boy that you ever saw. And I didn't know who he was and why he was there in the first place. He was born in 1943, so he was really a little kid. Then I thought to her, why do you need him? I mean, my gosh, look at him. But she got all us together, and we left very soon after that with some help of Vilna was liberated by Russians, so a Russian officer who happened to be Jewish helped my mother to get us all together and to go to Poland. And from Poland we stayed in Poland for a little bit, but my mother was afraid to be there also. And so we left for Israel. And thank God. And my little sister, is still in Israel and has a beautiful family. And I came to the United States. Thank God, I love this country with all my heart and soul. And I have 2 children, 2 beautiful children. My daughter is right here, Esther, and my son, Mark. And I have 3 grandchildren. And I thank God every single day for being here. I wanted, in conclusion, I wanted to say, when you see injustice, when something is being happened to a person or a group of people because of their color or because of any other differences, we cannot pretend we don't see, we don't know. It's not our business. It is our business. We cannot pretend. We have to take a stand. We have to take a stand because it can happen to any group of people. It can happen to any group of people. And so this is my message. This is my message. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Turkeltaub, for sharing your remarkable story with us today. The experiences of the Holocaust and those who survived Nazi persecution are in danger of becoming distant memories, and the ones that can too easily be set apart from our daily lives. We are privileged to bear witness to your story today and to honor the memory of your family. Thank you. To honor the memory of the 6 million Jews that were murdered by the Nazis during the Holocaust, Rabbi Mitch Levine, president of the Columbus Board of Rabbis, will present 6 survivors to light candles. We welcome family members to join the survivors as they light candles if they wish. In addition to the 6 million Jews who were murdered in the Holocaust, there were also 5 million other individuals murdered by the Nazis, including trade unionists, people with disabilities, gays, gypsies, and Christians. There were also non-Jews who, despite the grave risks to their own lives, were willing to shelter Jews being hunted by the Nazis. Senior pastor of Tridestone Missionary Baptist Church, Jerome H. Ross Sr., will present 5 representatives to light candles in memory of the 5 million individuals murdered by the Nazis during the Holocaust. We begin our candle lighting ceremony with the song by Gail Rose, El Malachai Racham, written by Hannah Sanesh and performed by Cantor Gail Rose from the cantor soloist from Temple Beth Shalom. Hannah Sanesh was a young woman from Hungary who moved to Israel and then volunteered to return to Europe to save Jewish lives. She parachuted into Yugoslavia, went to Hungary, and was then discovered by the Nazis and executed. She was known for her heroism and her poetry.
Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam, hachol v'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, barak shel hamayim, tefillat Adam. Rishru shamayim, barak shamayim, tefillat ha'adam. Oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
Please step forward to light as your name is called. Irv Shamus. I call Michael Furwalker to light the second candle. I call upon Susan and Alfred Tibor to light the third candle. I call Guido Eppelbaum to light the fourth candle. Call Ava Haig to light the fifth candle. I call Emma Mitchell to light the sixth candle.
I call Taika Wright to come and light the first candle. I call Debbie Wingy to light the second candle. I call Janet Hashoah to light the third candle. I call upon Johnny Oak to come light the fourth candle. And I will come and light the fifth candle. They came for me. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak up because I was not a communist. Then they came for the Jews. I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists. I didn't speak up because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me, and by that time, there was no one left to speak for me.
Would like to call upon Columbus Fire Battalion Chief Michael Verda, who will now play the taps. I would also like to recognize Rabbi Berman, who is also a commissioner on our Community Relations Commission, and he's here with us today. Thank you to Rabbi Levine and to Bishop Jerome Ross Sr., to our candlelighters, and to Gail Rose. And I would also like to offer our sincere thanks to those who have provided the support and contributed to help make this program possible. Special thanks to all of the schools, teachers, and administrators who continue to educate about the Holocaust and help facilitate the students' participation today. This concludes today's program, and thank you all for being here today.
El mele rachamim, shochem b'meramim. Amsei menucha nechona, tachat kafei hashkinah. Bama'alot kiddoshim u'toharim, kezochar ha'rakia. Mazhirim lanishmot kol achenu b'nei Yisrael shnitpachu v'shoah. Anashim, nashim v'tav shnechachu v'shinisrafu v'shinechergu. Shem hasod nefa hakidush Hashem Bekai